The way you love your dog like your own child. That isn't you being silly, and it isn't you filling a space where something else should be. In 2014, researchers at Massachusetts General Hospital slid mothers into a brain scanner and showed them two sets of photos, their own child and their own dog. The same reward and bonding network lit up for both. Not a metaphor, not you flattering yourself. A measurable overlap in the oldest parts of the brain. But the people running that scan found something stranger than the same, because it wasn't quite the same. And the difference is the part that will stay with you tonight. So this is not a video about whether the love is real. Your brain settled that question a long time ago. This is about why it runs this deep. The built-in pull, the chemistry you share, the reason it feels like family, and the reason that, when it ends, it hurts like family too. Let's start with the thing your body does before you have a single thought. Look at your dog, asleep on the rug, that round face, the big, dark eyes, the small nose set low, the high, soft curve of the forehead. Watch what happens in your chest when they lift that face toward you and hold your gaze a second too long. There is a name for why that works on you, and it has nothing to do with being sentimental. An ethologist named Konrad Lorenz called it the baby schema. A round face, large eyes, low on the head, a small nose, a high, soft forehead. It is a set of infant features, and across the whole of our species, it switches on one specific instinct in a human being. Protect this. Keep it close. Keep it alive. Here's what most people don't realize. In 2009, a team led by Melanie Glocker put adults in a scanner and showed them faces quietly nudged to have more or less of that baby look. The more infant the features, the more the brain's reward system lit up. The same deep circuitry that tells you something is worth caring for, worth moving toward, worth keeping. Here's what that means for you tonight. The pull you feel is not a decision you are making. It is closer to a reflex firing underneath the decision. Now here is the quiet part. The part that turns this from biology into something tender. A human baby grows out of that face. The eyes settle. The nose lengthens. The softness hardens into an adult who slowly stops needing you the way they once did. Your dog never does. Across thousands of years living at our side, dogs held on to those features. The round eyes, the soft brow, the open, upturned face that asks to be looked after. Long past puppyhood and kept them for the whole of their life. So when your chest goes soft, the second your dog looks up at you from the floor. That is not a weak heart, and it is not you being foolish. It is a reflex older than language, running in a part of you that was answering faces like that one long before you were born. You were built to answer that face, and your dog was shaped over 100 centuries beside us to keep asking. But the pull is only where it starts. You know the feeling. Your dog does something so impossibly soft. A long sigh as they settle, a slow stretch, one paw laid over their own nose. And instead of melting quietly, your jaw tightens. Your hands want to squeeze. Some part of you means it almost like a threat you would never in 1,000 years carry out. That has a name too. In 2015, Oriana Aragón and her colleagues at Yale studied exactly this and called it cute aggression. It belongs to a wider pattern they named dimorphous expression. One feeling that comes out wearing the face of its opposite. Here's what's actually happening. When a good feeling runs higher than the body is built to hold, the system does something clever to protect you. It borrows the shape of the opposite emotion to bring you back down to level. The tears that come at a wedding. The laugh that escapes at the worst possible moment. That low growl at a sleeping puppy. One emotion reaching for the mask of another, so the wave does not knock you over. About half of all people feel it, and there is not a trace of cruelty anywhere inside it. If anything, the researchers think it is doing you a quiet favor, pulling a feeling that has grown too big back down to a size you can actually hold. Think about that for a second. The urge to gently squeeze your dog until you almost can't stand it is not a glitch, and it is not something to be embarrassed about. It is your nervous system opening a valve, letting the pressure out of a love it cannot quite contain. So if you have ever said I could just eat you up through gritted teeth to a dog who did absolutely nothing but exist near you, that was never a strange thought, and it was never too much. That was simply love with nowhere left to go. And underneath the feeling, there is chemistry. Picture an ordinary evening, your hand resting on your dog's side on the couch, rising and falling with their breathing. Their breath slows. Yours slows to match it, without a word, without either of you deciding to. The room gets quieter from the inside. You did not plan the moment. Your bodies arranged it between them. Here's what's actually happening in that stillness. In 2003, a study by Johannes, Odendaal and Meintjes measured what a few quiet minutes of gentle contact do to the body, and found oxytocin rising in both the human and the dog. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone. It is the one tied to a parent and a newborn, to trust, to the feeling of being safe with someone. And here it climbed on both ends of the leash at once. In the same session, the stress hormone drifted down and blood pressure eased in the person doing the petting. Both bodies settling at the same time on the same couch for the same reason. A separate line of work by Takefumi Nagasawa found a similar rise from something as small as the two of you holding each other's gaze. Though whether that grew out of the long history we share with dogs is still debated, so we hold that piece of it gently. These are small studies, and we are not going to oversell them, but the shape of it is steady, and it keeps showing up. The same calm chemistry a mother's body knows tends to move through you and your dog in those completely unremarkable minutes on the couch. The ones you would never think to remember. It is the same quiet exchange that passes between a parent and a half-asleep child, and your body does not seem to know it is supposed to treat this one differently. So if a hard day loosens its grip, the moment your dog leans their full weight into your leg and just stays there, that is not in your head, and it is not you imagining comfort where there is none. Your body is running a program it usually saves for family. And in a moment, I want to show you the brain scan I opened this video with, because it asks a harder question. Not whether your body treats them like family, but whether your brain does. Now, before we keep going, if you are learning something new about your dog, hit like and subscribe. That's how we get these videos to more dog owners who want to love their dogs the right way. Here is the study from the very start of this video, the one that found something stranger than the same. Luke Stoeckel and his colleagues at Mass General took a group of mothers, women who each had a young child and also a dog, and scanned their brains while they looked at photographs of each of them, one after another. And a shared network was switched on for both. Reward, emotion, the circuits for affiliation, for belonging, for reading a face that matters to you. Looking at the dog and looking at the child pulled on many of the very same deep strings. So far, this is the part everyone loves to quote. Your brain, treating them almost the same. But here's what most people miss, because the researchers did not stop there. It was not a copy. When a mother looked at her own child, one region lit up that the dog simply did not reach. A deep spot down in the midbrain, tied to the specific, ancient bond between a parent and an infant. And when that same mother looked at her own dog, a different region ran the hardest. The part of the brain built for reading a face, for watching closely, for working out what another living creature is feeling from the outside in. 14 women. One small study. Hold all of it lightly, but even held lightly, the picture is unusually clear. And yet look at the shape of what they found. Your brain does not blur your dog into a child and lose track of the difference. That is the lazy version of this story, and it is not what the scan says. What it says is quieter and far more moving. Your brain lights the family circuits for both of them, and then it keeps a room for your child that the dog never walks into, and it gives your dog a room that is theirs and no one else's. The overlap is real, and so is the line. And once you see it that way, the difference stops feeling like a demotion for your dog and starts to feel like proof of how specific the love actually is. Your brain did not file them under child by accident, running out of folders. It opened a new one. So the next time it feels like your dog sits in the same place a child would sit inside you, you are not imagining that overlap. It is genuinely, measurably there. But your brain is not confused, and it never was for a single second. It is not mistaking your dog for a baby. It is loving your dog in a shape that belongs to no other creature on earth. Its own room, its own light. Not a smaller version of the room your child lives in. A different room entirely, lit by a different kind of attention. And here is the part almost everyone misses. This whole thing does not only run in one direction, from you to them. It would be easy to hear all of this as a story about you. Your instincts, your hormones, your brain quietly pouring love onto a creature who cannot really love you back. That is the one part of the story that isn't true. Here's what most people don't realize. In 2008, a study by Rachel Palmer and Deborah Custance borrowed a test first built for human infants, the one that watches how a baby uses a parent as a home base, and ran a version of it with dogs, and dogs use their owner as a secure base. With you in the room, a dog is steadier, braver, more willing to explore and try. And the moment you step out, some of that courage quietly leaves with you. It is the same pattern you would see in a small child who is bold at the playground only as long as they can look back and find you on the bench. So when your dog trots a few steps ahead on a walk and then circles back to check on you again and again, that circling is not nervousness. It is a small animal keeping its safe place in sight. Then there is the scent. Gregory Berns, a neuroscientist at Emory, did something remarkable. He trained dogs to lie still and fully awake inside an MRI scanner, no sedation, so he could watch their brains in real time. And out of every scent he could offer them, strangers, other dogs, familiar people, one scent lit the reward center brightest. Yours, the smell of a shirt you had already worn. Now, calling that a love center goes a step past what the data can carry. But the reward center, the part that quietly says this one matters, that we can say. Sit with that for a second. Somewhere in your dog's brain, out of the entire world of smells, you are the one marked worth wanting. So when your dog stops mid-run at a crowded park, lifts their head, and turns to find your face in the crowd, that is not habit, and it is not hunger. That is the same bond you have been feeling all along, simply pointed the other way. You are not the only one in this room who filed the other one under family. And that is exactly why the last part is the hardest. There is one beat left, and this is the part that stays with you long after the video ends. So let's slow down for it. Think about the quiet of a house on the first evening. The bowl stays full. The nails that don't click across the kitchen floor at the usual hour. The warm corner of the couch that stays cold. The door that opens onto a silence with a shape now. A dog-shaped absence pressed into every ordinary room. And here is the thing no one prepares you for. The grief does not arrive in proportion to what other people think you lost. It arrives in proportion to what your own body already knew. For years, a piece of your nervous system was tuned to one specific presence in the house. The weight settling at the foot of the bed, the sound at the door, the warmth leaning into your leg. When that presence is gone, the tuning does not switch off politely. It keeps reaching, for a while, toward a frequency that has gone quiet. There is a name for a grief like that. A grief the world quietly refuses to seat at the table. A specialist named Kenneth Doka called it disenfranchised grief. It is a real loss that other people decide is not real enough to count. It was just a dog, they say, meaning no harm at all. You can always get another one. And so the grief goes underground. It gets mourned in private, on a lunch break, in the car, apologized for even as it pours out of you. And that is perhaps the loneliest part of it. Not only losing them, but being asked, gently, to pretend it was smaller than it was. But follow the logic of everything we have just watched together. If that bond ran on the same wiring as family, the same reward circuits, the same bonding hormone rising on both ends of the leash, the same protected room in the brain, then the grief that follows is not oversized, and it is not you being dramatic. It is exactly, precisely the right size, because the size of a goodbye is the truest record any of us will ever have of what the love actually was. You are not measuring your grief against anyone else's. You are reading, in the shape of the loss, the exact dimensions of something you carried quietly for years. So if you have ever grieved a dog longer than you felt allowed to say out loud, you were not overreacting. You were not too soft, or too much, or too attached to an animal. You were not failing to keep things in perspective. You were mourning family. Quietly and completely, because that is exactly what they were to you. And in a room in their brain that lit up for your scent alone, that is what you were to them. So the next time you catch yourself wondering whether loving your dog like your own child is a little bit silly, that's not you pretending. That's not you filling an empty space with the wrong thing. That is a brain built to answer a soft, round, upturned face. A body pouring out the same calm chemistry it saves for family. A bond your dog carries back to you across every crowded room. And a grief, at the very end, cut to the exact size of the love that came before it. That kind of love. The kind people keep gently telling you to hold in proportion. It was never too much. It was just the right size for what they are to you, and for what you are to them. If this is the kind of thing you like to sit with, subscribe and stay a while. And tell me below, what is the one thing your dog does that makes the whole house feel like home?